Hey y'all, welcome back to Dots and Beyond. My name is Beth. Today we are looking through my bullet journals from the past to try to figure out what I really want to use and spreads I want to set up for 2024. We are talking about overcoming planner paralysis. Let's go ahead and get started. To do this little exercise, I have created this worksheet. I will make this available via a link down below. I thought about doing this in my current bullet journal, which is mainly this one. Y'all know I've been hopping back and forth between two. We're going to talk about it. But I thought it would be a whole lot easier if I just made a worksheet. So this is my matrix, my thought process. At the top are things that I must have in my planning system, both spreads as well as whether it's physical or digital. And we're talking about what I'm going to call my everyday carry. Now, that's just the direction that I'm heading. So that's what we're thinking about for 2024. So things that I must have, from physical attributes to the spreads that I want to put in it. Might are things that I've either used before and I'm thinking about keeping, or they're things that I'm thinking about tossing out and not using, or new things that I might add. It's just the might category. It might go, it might stay, might. Modify. These are things that have been working for me but need to change. More are things that I want to add, or things that I want to try, or features to my planner system that I want more of. And then omit are those things that I know for 2024 they're just going to go away. They're just going to go away. They're not working for me. And that is how I got my categories. Must, might, modify, more, and omit. And then these categories down the left are a little more loose. They're a little more able to be personalized, I think. So for what I have done, I have put in format. So is that analog or digital? If it's analog, what kind of planner is it? Does it have bookmarks? Does it have a lot of pages? Does it have white paper or cream paper? Those sorts of questions. Purpose. It's going to be my everyday carry. That's kind of what I'm going for, but purpose could be your reading journal. Purpose could be a bullet journal. It could be a travel journal. And so things that would be specific to the purpose of that planner that you're looking at. Design. This has a lot to do with being a creator, as well as the functional design of my planner. And then I have set up specific pages. Annual, monthly, weekly, daily. Those things that I might want to have in my planning system, or I'm going to keep in my planning system, because if you've been here since July, August-ish, y'all know I'm waffling between planners. So I used to have a work planner and a personal planner, and then I picked up a side hustle. So this is my creative bullet journal. This is what was my work journal, and then I needed to move all of my work things into the Microsoft ecosystem. I had set it up like a work journal, and then I just sort of clipped these pages from July together, or June, I guess. I moved into this one, at the end of May. Set up some new pages to kind of drive my focus, and then I've been using this since July in a much more minimal fashion than this bullet journal, and I'm doing a lot of experimenting in it, setting up spreads and things that are in pre-printed planners to see if I want to go in that direction. Let's talk about it and figure out what I'm going to put on my matrix here to help me overcome planner paralysis for 2024. The first thing, format. And I do have to turn this diagonally or I can't write, and y'all certainly wouldn't be able to read it. Analog. I do like paper. I'm not loving having my work for my day job in the Microsoft ecosystem. I'm getting used to it, but I don't love it. It doesn't make me excited to tap into my workflow there, but I do that. I do know, because I have tried other sizes, use a traveler's notebook for my reading journal, which is great. I used B5s, and they are just way too big for me. I know I don't want a B5. I don't think I can go any smaller than an A5. So when it comes to planner, whether it's bound or travelers and loose or rings even, I think A5 is pretty much my size. I think I've been doing this long enough that I'm pretty much attached to an A5. So when it comes to format and must-haves, we have analog, we have A5. Other thing that I do know that I want is some sort of grid. It could be dot grid, it could be square. I need some sort of guidance because I can't draw a straight line to save my life. And I do not like ruled lines most of the time. Most of the time, ruled lines are way too wide for me in journals and notebooks. I definitely don't want the ruled lines. So some sort of a grid, might be a dot, might be a square grid. I've never used a square grid. It might drive me crazy. As far as physical attributes for the journal, this one doesn't have one. This one does. We're going to put in pen loop. I have pen loops that you can stick in the back of the journal and have out, but I chose to not put one in here because I wanted to experiment with whether I could deal with having a pen loop or not having a pen loop. I don't like not having a pen loop, so we're going to say a pen loop is a must-have for me. The other thing that I have grown very attached to are thumb tabs. Now, a thumb tab is any tab you put down here at the bottom of your page to get you where you want to go. I got this from Rachel in Theory. Not afraid to shout that out. It's the greatest idea for navigating around your journal that anybody has come up with lately for me is the thumb tab. And these are just page tabs that are removable. The thumb tab is something that I'm going to put in. Now, obviously, I put them in myself. Doesn't actually come with the journal, but it's a physical attribute that I will add to the journal. And then page numbers. And that is super messy. But this is the Bullet Journal Edition 2. It does come, I'll flip back here to the blank pages. It does come with page numbers. I have enjoyed that because as I have started putting everything in here, I have become an indexer when I was not an indexer before. And it's mainly for collections that I just start. Things I'm studying, notes that I take when I'm watching a YouTube video or I'm listening to a podcast. I have become a little bit more of an indexer, and I like having the page numbers now when that used to not be important to me. And obviously here in the back of an Archer and Olive, you can see we don't have any page numbers. Yes, I can number them myself. That's it for my musts on the format. Let's talk about the mights. This list tends to get a little bit long because, again, you're talking about I might take things out, I might add things in. I'm not 100% sure I want to do those things yet. So, I might change paperweight. If I stick with this more minimal style I have been doing, there's no point in me having 160 GSM paper like this journal does. But I haven't made that decision yet, so it's in my might column. I might want some pre-printed structure. I don't want a fully pre-printed planner, but I might want some pre-printed structure. We're still working through that. I'm still doing weeklies that I'm setting up in here. That video will be out tomorrow. I'll set up for week 38, but I just don't know yet. Still trying to see if I like it, so it's in there. I do prefer to have an elastic band, but it's not necessary. As you can see, I've started tucking this one into the back. I've also done the same with this one. I'm not using them right now, so they're no longer a non-negotiable. I could possibly do without it. I think that's pretty much it on that. So modify, there's really not a change because I'm not moving from a digital system to an analog system, or I'm not moving from analog to digital. So I don't really have anything that I'm ready to put in modify yet. More. What I do want more of is pages. I like a lot of pages, especially now that I am taking notes and things. Some of these things take up a whole page or 2 pages as I've gone through, made notes. I don't necessarily just want a page per day or, let's see, so this was notes that I took. I'm also changing up style. So here's this week. This week's been one of those weeks that I have been so crazy busy that my days have gotten away from me. And so I'm still playing with structured layouts. We had kind of looked at some of those at the end of August, where I was doing this sort of sideways thing down. I went to a different structure, decided I didn't like having this cross line if I was using more than 1 day per page. And sometimes it is more than 1 day per page, and some days it's 3 pages. So I want to be able to have that freedom to write as much or as little as I need. But I do like the idea of having more pages, possibly keeping everything in one book, though those 2 things are connected. Something I can omit, bookmark. Right now, these bookmarks are washi taped into the back. Once I started using the thumb tab idea, the bookmarks went away for me. They're more in the way than anything, and I don't need a bookmark. The bookmarks are done. Let's talk about purpose. So this purpose and this planner that I am looking at is for personal planning, because again, I have my work stuff in that Microsoft ecosystem. I need to do some Dots and Beyond planning in here. I do keep a lot of that in Notion, but I like brainstorming and things in my journal. Projects, both home and other things. Note-taking, as we just discussed, when I am interested in a specific topic. And in the same vein, and I'm going to fit this in here, I'm going to write rabbit holes, which is really when my brain just needs to go deep down into something and work it out. It's a little different than note-taking. Note-taking is when I'm just consuming media and go, oh, I want to remember more about that, so I jot it down really quickly. A rabbit hole is when I get fixated on something. So one of the rabbit holes in this journal that I got on was whether I'm in menopause or not. There's a lot of information in there about whether that's what I'm going through. You know, just gotta get it in there. And then most of the rest of this doesn't apply all that much. I do want to do more of going back to the core bullet journal method. And what I have omitted already is a day job to an extent. Sometimes at the beginning of a day, I will write down 3 priorities. Sometimes those priorities are day job related. They are important enough. All 3 of these were for my day job. I would really like to make sure I'm getting those into the Microsoft ecosystem as well, because that makes sure that when I get to my desk, I'm opening all the things within the Microsoft ecosystem that I need to work. Not just my email, but the to-do list and planner, Teams, all of those things, as opposed to having it in here. Just creates a little bit of a gray area when I write down those 3 things in here, so I do want to make sure I get them out of there. Okay, let's talk about design. I love an annual theme. I think y'all know that. So my annual theme we're going to tuck the experimental one journal away for a minute. My annual theme for 2023 has been music and lyrics, and I've been doing my themes based off of my playlists. This journal was called Chester. This journal was called Freddie. I do want an annual theme. And in the same vein, I want to name my journal, my planner, whatever we end up going with. So that's 2 things in the design must category. Modify, I do want it to be creative, but I want it to be simpler. Does that mean I'm not going to do full bullet journal setups? No, they just might be more minimal. And even if I did change mine, I'd still be doing creative setups for my son, Kenny, so you'd still get to see those too. More of what I want to do in this design feature is subscriber input. Now, if you're not a creator, that might not be in there for you. I like the idea of having shareables and printables that tie in with my themes that I can share with y'all. Those are definitely creator specific, but they are relative to the design. If I do a theme in here and I'm going to share it with you, that's one of those things that I would have to prepare for. Digging into the nitty-gritty of my past journals in order to look at annual, monthly, weekly, and daily. So again, this is my 23 setup. They're very similar. I wonder if I can do this side by side. And I designed them that way on purpose. So this is my cover page. I like the cover page, but I don't necessarily need this. These are my themes of the year situation. I mean, it's fun to have. This is the first time I've done it, but it's not a must for me. The cover page is, though. This just kind of switched around where the title of the year for my cover page went. Moving on, we have my key and my grid guide. They're not necessarily a must for me anymore. They're a might. They're more for the aesthetics of the journal than they are actual functional for me, which is why they're falling into a might. I know what my key is. Every now and then I tweak it, add something different, but for the most part, I know what my key is. Word of the year. This year, my word of the year is flourish. Definitely want to keep a word of the year. That's going to be a must for me, and I'll write these down in a minute when we're done looking at journals. So future log, I was minimally using my future log at the front half of the year. Not at all. Not at all. And I'm really not using it in this one either. Everything I have for future planning is digital. It's all in iCal or Outlook. And then I have the two of them connected. I'm going to do away with the future log, which is scandalous in a bullet journal. I know, but I'm going to do it. Moving on, this was sort of 2022 lessons and a 2023 guide. This was my mid-year check-in. I like this. It's a maybe, I think. I don't know if it's necessarily one of those things that I definitively want to put in yet. And then I had my 102 to do. I have this on a modify, and I don't know what that means. I don't know if it means that I'm going to change how I'm putting it in my journal, if I'm going to move it to a long-term collection so I don't have to copy it from one to the other, because I did copy from one to the other. Some of them I have done this year. They're marked off. This is going to go into the modify category for me. My plan, misplan. I have a plan, misplan. It's in Notion. Didn't use my journal at all. This was a lyrics page for me to write down song lyrics that just grabbed my attention. Even if they were song lyrics I'd heard 1,000 times, and then all of a sudden you hear one and it sticks with you a little differently. I started filling that out, and then it went by the wayside eventually because it was a little hard to keep up with. And then we jump into my monthly setup. Let me stick these off to the side. And here were the January through June and July through December in these big monster B5s. I have a video on how I failed my bullet journal in 2022. A lot of that had to do with the size of these journals. I didn't want to carry them around with me. Cover page, name. This one was named Sharehe. Cover page, Tamasha. This one here, we're not going to flip through all that much because I actually used it more like a healing workbook here in the beginning. It's got a 50 before 50 in it. I did away with that at the end of that year. And then here, pretty much the same. I didn't use any of my trackers. I set up some trackers at the beginning of this journal. Didn't use any of them at all. But one thing I do want to try to go back to that I think is a maybe is this sort of life admin or when did I last kind of a spread. It would just have to live in a way that I know where it's at and I'm going to be able to go back to it. I'm terrible at coming back to the beginning of a bullet journal, which is why my annual pages have shrunk down over the last 4 years. I've really put fewer and fewer of them in. Again, here was that 50 before 50. I'm not great at a year in pixels. That's what this was. The only place I've been able to maintain it is in my reading journal, then into the monthlies. Sometimes you go back and you look at your journals and you say, oh, well, I used that. Maybe it works for me. Maybe it doesn't work for me. Maybe we want to try it again. 2021 was my Fierce Fictional Female Challenge. This journal was called Diana. So had my cover page. Again, had the grid guide. There was my word of the year. I've already said that's a must, and I'm going to keep it. Future log, we're going to do away with. I do want to put goals. Y'all can see this. So I do want to put goals back into my bullet journal. That was not in the ones that I'm using this year. And I really think I kind of want to put a vision board back in my journal as well. That's something that I want to add. Things that didn't work, so I took them out. This is still, I think, my favorite annual theme, though, to date. It was just a lot of fun to do. This was Buffy, and many of the same elements. Word of the year, future logs. I've never been good at a future log. This one I did put goals in, so again, wanting to add goals. This was like a workout tracker that I didn't use. This is tracking my stats. I'm not really good at that. They're important, but they're not that important. I don't want to get hung up on stats when it comes to creating. That was my What Would Buffy Do spread. Never used it. Really thought I was going to keep an income tracker for all of the months. I keep one digitally. It was a great idea, but I didn't put it in here at all. That 50 before 50 list. And this was another 6 month check-in. The thing here to think about is, and we're going to look really, really old here for a minute. When I first started bullet journaling, well, first of all, I did the pen and notepad thing for a while. I actually took that advice and I just used a pen and some spiral bound notebook that I had to go, does this work for me at all? And then I started adding in some artistic elements. These are $7 journals off of Amazon that I was using in 2020. There's a gap from March to June because COVID. You know, it was the time of the panini of the pandemic. I wrote plan and practice on the front of this one because I didn't make it very far. But these are not pretty. I mean, they're artistic to an extent, but we're going to look at them. I started my first theme with a Lord of the Rings journal. It's my name in Elvish. I made an effort, but it wasn't crazy. But some of the things are still here. I still had a word of the year, had some goals, had a body tracker that I didn't use, which comes up over and over again. If it's fitness related, not good at keeping track of it. I had put in a list of restaurants that I wanted to try in my area, and then the pandemic hit, and so that went by the wayside. I was doing good with my future log. January was Hobbiton. I was kind of going through Middle Earth. Kind of recreated this in my reading journal last year, but I used it for a lot of things, like writing down routines, and some days were better than others, but definitely was using it more. And look, structure, didn't use it as much. Less structure, I wrote a whole lot more. What I have figured out about myself is that the more artistic I have gotten, the less functionally I have used my bullet journal. And for many people, it is the other way around because they want it to be aesthetically pleasing before they use it. But if I flip back through this first round of my bullet journal, I am way more consistent in my planning than I am or have been over the last year or two. I was using it, this was an interview prep. And then, like I wrote, sometimes we forget. But overall, I was using this journal way more. And then this says turn the page. And honestly, I talk about all the things that came along with the pandemic. And then I picked back up in, what month is this? June? July? I picked back up in June. But I didn't pack back up with the Lord of the Rings theme. I jumped to cities. Again, I was much more consistent in using this when it was easier to set up, quicker to do. I mean, very extensively on some of this. And so consistency for me has become one of the keys. So comparing some of the things that have been in there for annual setups, what do we have? We know I'm going to want a cover page. That's consistent. We know I'm going to want a word of the year. One thing that is now a must is an index. Because of the way that I have been journaling in here for the last 2 months, I now want that index so I can find those crazy rabbit hole pages. What has become a mite? My key/grid guide page, which I combined a couple of years ago. They're always on the same page together. I might add in what I'm going to call lessons or guide. That's where I had the 2022 review, 2023 guiding questions, and then my mid-year 2023. That's still a might. I might put that back in. Core values. These are my work values, and these are the values that my workplace has. I just always like to have them together, but I'm really thinking of taking those out because these were work related and putting in my actual personal values to remind me of what those are. So core values. I'm thinking about putting in a trigger list, which is just a list of things that when you're doing like a brain dump and getting things out of your noggin, that you can kind of go down your trigger list and ask yourself all those questions to make sure you don't miss anything. My someday maybe list is a might. Not using it to its fullest potential. And then I said modify, I have my 102 to do. I'd like to keep it, but I'll probably modify it. More that I want to add, what we'll be adding back into, be the vision board. which I haven't used in my journal since 2020, losing track of the years, 2021. Goals. And then I also want to add the moon phases in somehow, some way. Don't know what that'll look like. I definitely don't want to redraw them like I did in my son's journal, but fit them in somehow. And then what can I omit? Future log. That lyrics page, just because it's in my most recent one, I want to make sure that I don't repeat that. That overall monthly themes page, that one at the beginning that has all the themes on it. It was the first time I did it. It's cute to have it and look over, but I don't need to keep that. It can go. All right, so monthly. Again, I like having a monthly cover page. I also like having my month in review. Now, I am very much thinking that I am going to go back to this journal. I think I'm very much going to go back to this doodly style of a month in review, if I can remember to remind myself to do that. Because I was looking over these the other day, and it really brought a whole lot more joy to me to see these pages than to see like prompty questions and how I answered them. This is what I'm thinking I'm probably going to go back to. So maybe I should write doodles. Y'all see what my handwriting looks like when I'm not trying to make it nice. Okay, so monthly, where am I at? Calendar. Do I need a monthly calendar in my bullet journal system? I don't know that I do, because again, I'm doing calendar pre-planning digitally. If I had a calendar in my system, would I use it more for memory keeping? Possibly. And that's why it's in the might section. I am thinking about adding some kind of favorite things to my monthly setup. Again, just as part of memory keeping. Don't know what that would flesh out like. Habits are on the maybe, because I am terrible at filling out habit trackers. You probably saw as I flipped through some of the journals. It's just not one of those things that I'm good at. What I am good at is filling out every night. I use the moods tracker to keep check of my bipolar disorder. I've gotten back in the habit of that now that I'm going back to therapy and seeing my psychiatrist more often. So one of the other things that I can omit on the monthly are mood trackers, but I might keep habit trackers. I can also create specific trackers in my moods tracker because I have the subscription version, which is like $10 a year. It's very, very cheap. Highly recommend. Absolutely not sponsored. I could create my habit trackers there since I'm already filling in my mood questions that pertain to my mental health. I could put them there. I do want to add in some kind of financial bill tracker, mainly recurring expenses. Put that on my weekly setup last week. And then one of the other things that I did, I'm going to keep coming back to this journal. One of the other things that I did partway through 21 was every month I did a challenge of some kind. There it is. So in January, I did the January Cure by Apartment Therapy. It's always about just winter cleaning. And in February, it was a workout challenge. I don't remember what they all were, but I was doing a monthly challenge. And I'd like to kind of revisit that because it's just an extra something to stick in your journal to motivate you to do one specific thing that month. Modify. I don't have anything I really want to modify unless it's this calendar situation. If I keep a calendar, I'm going to want to modify it. And then more. What do I want to add? So not necessarily monthly, but I would like to add some sort of quarterly dashboard before those quarters. So before January, before April, before every quarter. And then some sort of memory keeping. Mentioned that before, whether that's on the calendar. That's where the memory keeping goes. I don't know. And then I'd like to do some sort of monthly journaling prompt just for some mindfulness. It's one of those things that I'd like to have in there. So that is what that looks like. So for the weekly's a little easier for me. What do we have right now? We have the vertical weekly that I've been trying out, right? So we're going to put it over here on might because this also is connected to this do I want a pre-printed structure. And if I do go with a pre-printed structure, would it come with a vertical weekly? Because my video tomorrow will be me filling in this week or this upcoming week. I don't want to create this every time. I don't mind creating it right now because I'm trying to figure out if I even want to use one. But if I do want to use one, I'm definitely getting one that's pre-printed. So vertical weekly, and again, some sort of bill tracking. Just because when you see it week by week by week, it hounds home a little bit better. I kind of want to go back to doing a weekly to-do list or a rolling weekly. Not quite sure what that would look like. Other than that, that's a pretty empty row. And then daily. This is where things have really changed for me. One of the things that's a must, I got to be able to do free flow dailies. That's just more of the bullet journal method. I don't want boxes. Again, this is the closest one nearby. So I do not want a box structure that confines me to how much space I can use. I do like this weekly task list though. But I do not want the boxes confining me to how much space I can use in a day. So I do need to be able to free flow. I have been combining my planning with my CoStar app, just kind of as an affirmation each day. I also like to add in at least one gratitude and one achievement each day. I am terrible at gratitude journaling. It's just not my strong suit. I'm a very jaded person because of it. Do I want to keep color or design in it at all, or do I just want to keep it fully functional with just this pen? I don't know yet. I'm going to write structure here, and it's going to seem a little weird because I just said I need to free flow, but it comes back to as I've been using this. So here's where I put the date, I put the weather, put what day of the week it was, here was my CoStar thing, and then I put a little bit of structure, and then I'm free flow after that. So that's what that structure question mark means, is what do I want this header section to look like? Because it's changed from there to here and some other things in between. So what do I want that to look like? I am enjoying this because it gives space where I can write. If I'm taking notes on something, then this is my header, and then this is the headline for where I'm taking those notes from, like this one right here. So if I ways to simplify, I got that from Better Creating, so I wrote that down right here. But still trying to figure out what I want that to look like so that I have some kind of consistency, because this has been all over the place. So more structure. I did, flipping back through those old journals, realize that I love having quotes and affirmations in my journal, just randomly here and there, willy-nilly, wherever. It's just something that I definitely prefer. The other thing that I am preferring is writing in cursive, because it's faster for me. I know it's not as aesthetically pleasing necessarily, especially when I get all kind of messy. Therefore, omit is print or printing. Not necessarily all the time. It has its place. Most of the time, I don't want to feel pressured to print because I might photograph it or share it on the internet. That's just the bottom line of that. If I'm okay with my cursive, even if it gets scribbly, you should be too. So that is what I have gone through and I did this digitally. Like I said, I'll make this available. You can get it as a PDF, or you can get it as a Google Sheet. I did this digitally first, and then I've actually added some things as we've gone through this today as I was looking back through the journals. That's where I started to kind of figure out, here in the midst of pre-order planner season, what am I looking at for 2024? And I'm still not 100% decided. I have ordered some things. I finally, at some point you got to go, all right, I'm going to order a thing or two. And if I decide they're not for me, I'll resell them before the end of the year or gift them or something. But this is what I have gone through. So here's the must column. This is the one that's really important, right? So I want a paper planner that's analog. I want it to be an A5. It needs to have some kind of grid. It needs to have a pin loop, but I can add that if I need to. I'm going to use thumb tabs in it. I really want it to have page numbers. I really don't want to add my own page numbers, but I will if I have to. And then how I want to use it. You know, not just the physical book itself, but how I want to use it as my bullet journal and my planning system to be determined. But I hope this gives you an idea of if you're feeling stuck like I have been. I've slowly been getting unstuck the more I have used this changed system. Even though I still have my bullet journal, I have slowly been feeling less stuck. But this kind of also helped me figure out what I like, what I don't like, so that I don't have any paralysis around picking a planner for 2024 when it really comes time to pick that planner and set up and start using it, because I do not like changing systems in the middle of a year. I'll do it if I have to, but I really prefer not to. All right, y'all, that's it. I hope you got something out of all of this crazy in this video. If you did like this video, please give it a big thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I will catch you in the next one.